Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. And in the news today, American news, it's all about the government shutdown. Okay, it's big news. Ordinarily, that'd be very big news. Is that really the biggest news in America right now? Is it? I don't think it is. Last week, Pete Hegseth, who used to run the Defense Department, has since been renamed the Department of War, recalled military commanders from all over the world for a special meeting. Hey, what's going on? In that meeting, both he and President Trump yesterday urged them to embrace the idea of lethal force and to train that force on American cities. This is potentially a huge escalation on sending in the National Guard on a fabricated pretext. Trump has told senior military commanders to view the American cities that he doesn't like as training grounds. He said that. As training exercises to practice more openly lethal operations. Is anybody going to stop this madman before he starts suggesting US soldiers learn how to goose step? But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So, is the president training the military to fight his own voters here? Listen, American cities will be the proving ground for a war from within. That's what Trump has told his military leaders. I know the phrase dystopian gets thrown around a lot these days. If this isn't dystopian with a capital D, I don't know what is. This is the sort of stuff you read about in history books. I've never seen it in real time. Yes, we've seen countries go from democracy to authoritarian dictatorship, but those countries never really had a strong grip on democracy in the first place. Unless I've been blind, this is the first time when a strong democracy has taken this path. And it's all happening so quickly and with so little resistance. And it's not just talk. This administration has very deliberately moved specialised riot control units into key urban centres like Chicago, Portland, Washington, D.C. So what exactly is this latest development that we should all find really, frankly, terrifying, even for those of us in Europe? Because this move doesn't just represent a path to the collapse of our own economic and political alliances, which is serious enough. Far-right leaders over this side of the Atlantic are watching and learning. If Trump succeeds in America, he will be instructing fascists in Europe at the same time. Now, the first key development, first bit of evidence, and perhaps the most chilling, is the very phrase that started this whole thing, war from within. When Trump first came to power and he's been inaugurated, we were all wondering, who's he going to invade first? Is he going to be Canada, Greenland, Panama, Gaza? It's his own country. He might still want to invade others. I mean, you have to think to yourself, why has he renamed the Department of Defense the Department of War? Because he intends to wage war. And yet, he's the president who insisted, no, we don't want any more foreign wars. We don't want any more foreign wars. And people bought into that. He's not talking about a foreign war, is he? It's a war against his own country. War from within. This isn't some off-the-cuff remark. It first surfaced as official policy in summer, early summer, May 2025. There was a memo from the Domestic Policy Council. So you imagine this, you've got this scanned PDF. It's quietly uploaded to some subfolder in the White House, tucked away, entitled Public Safety Initiatives. So journalists would have to dig for it, but some did. And buried in there is you've got this language, which is stark and unambiguous. The United States must prepare for war from within. And they defined it as coordinated civil unrest that challenges federal authority. Now, you just let that sink in. Because we're not talking about insurrection or cessation, seceding from the union here. That federal authority at the moment is overreaching. So you're really just talking about people protesting federal overreach. Now, here's where it gets even more concerning. So the exact language verbatim reappears a few months later, yesterday, September 30th, the executive order. The order's not about some minor administrative tweak. It's shifting millions of dollars from existing overseas counter-terror training programs into urban combat rehearsals in the United States. And here's the thing. The order doesn't name foreign adversaries, not a single one. It's not interested in enemies from without, but enemies within. It explicitly names American cities, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York. Not a coincidence. This same Tri-City list has popped up in every subsequent presentation internal document since, according to journalists. If this were really about addressing crime statistics, as he tries to argue, wouldn't you expect cities like Memphis or St. Louis or Baltimore to be high on that list? places that do face significant challenges with violent crime. Yet they are conspicuously absent. What do Chicago, Los Angeles, New York all share? Democratic mayor, consistent history of large-scale public protest, political activism. It's not about crime, it's about control. So evidence point one is clear. The geography of this programme matches political opposition far better than any objective homicide data. Strongly suggests a focus on suppressing dissent, not tackling traditional criminal activity. Fundamentally altering the military's perceived role within American borders. Next piece of evidence comes straight from the training scenarios themselves, and they are fairly frightening. You're not talking about hypothetical drills for natural disasters or active shooter situations, which are a threat to America. You've got this leaked scenario brief country reports. It lists 3 specific practice missions, right? Polling station recovery, Capitol, as in Congress, Capitol perimeter reinforcement, and Electoral Commission protection. So you go over those titles again. Polling station recovery. How do you need to recover from a polling station? Capitol perimeter reinforcement. And you think, well, the only person that breached that perimeter was the insurrectionists a few years ago led by Donald Trump, and he's now the president. And Electoral Commission protection. Why would they need particular protection? What's going on here? These aren't just generic exercises. They sound very much like rehearsals for intervening in a democratic process. Why would you need to train specifically for major disorder at events like this when you don't have major disorder at events like this? Or the one time when we did, it was instigated by the now president. Now, you might be thinking about the Posse Comitatus Act. It's a bedrock legal principle in America that sort of prohibits the use of federal troops for domestic law enforcement. And it exists on paper. But, of course, the legal workaround, we've seen it, the part that makes these training scenarios so disturbing. The Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel issued an opinion last year, actually, I think it was, effectively gutting the practical application because the opinion states that the president can deploy infantry for election security if he simply declares it a national security event, which basically means your legal guardrail designed to keep the military out of elections is effectively gone, dissolved by a piece of paper. All the president has to say is, oh, there's a national emergency. We know that Trump has already bypassed the Constitution multiple times by just citing a national emergency. What Americans previously thought was a safeguard seemingly had no objective way of stipulating exactly what a national emergency is. Early American society probably imagined their Supreme Court would be the arbiters. No, they're just rubber stamping authoritarian control. The training scenarios you're seeing don't just happen to align with this legal loophole. They match it like a key in a lock. It suggests a deliberate plan to exploit this new interpretation. If Trump cannot change the Constitution, he will simply ignore it by citing national emergency. It's not just a legal technicality, it's a potential game changer for how US elections are protected or policed. Trump does not want to lose control of Congress during next year's midterms. He is determined to increase his power, not surrender it. To understand what's going on, it's important to remember the motivation of 2 crucial players here. The first is Donald Trump himself. He desperately wants to avoid going to prison. Being president only delays the inevitable for a few more years. There are still plenty of criminal investigations which could be deployed against him once he is constitutionally barred from presidential office. If his term passes as the Constitution intends, he'd better hope he dies before the Democrats return the Department of Justice to independence. But Trump isn't going to look forward to death, not a man like him. So he has to make sure he rules for the long term. He will want to live beyond 100. So he needs to think long term. He has to stay in power long term. So he is motivated to destroy American democracy just to save his own skin. But the second player is the likes of Stephen Miller behind Project 2025. They are on an ideological mission to destroy liberal democracy for the sake of it. They have spied an opportunity to use Trump to control America long term. And think about this. Some of the people behind this project are really quite young. Pete Hegseth is younger than I am. Does he not fear Nuremberg-style trials for his role in the assault on American democracy once democracy returns and America gets pissed off with him? Trump's old. He just has to hang on for another decade maybe, and Father Time sorts his problems out for him. Hegseth will be vulnerable to the retribution of his country for much longer. How long can this project last before it falls like all authoritarian dictatorships in countries who are used to democracy and want to fight for it? 10 years? 20 years? That's not enough to save him. He's in his 40s. Hegseth and others believe their Reich is going to last for decades at least. Otherwise, they would not be putting themselves in the frame like this. Is it really worth it for a bit of power to, in later life, imprison for the rest of it? J.D. Vance, even younger than Hegseth, he's 41. Same thing, that young men and women are putting themselves in the frame for Nuremberg-style trials when they are finally defeated would be madness. Unless they believe they're going to hold on to power forever. And these are not stupid men. They must think they've got good reason to be confident that this is forever. And they are now talking about using certain Democrat voting cities as training exercises. That's Trump's words, training exercises in new military tactics aimed at greater lethality. This is like some Running Man shit here. And yet what's on the front page of the New York Times today? Government shut down. That's like literally the only news considered noteworthy. I mean, ordinarily huge news, of course it is. But yesterday, the US president ordered the US military. They brought military commanders from overseas, all over the world, brought them here for this really important meeting. And that really important meeting was to tell them to invade US cities simply for exercising their constitutional rights. He urged them to favour lethality specifically. Don't just gain military victory, destroy lives, grind them into the dirt. That was his clear message. This is utter madness, isn't it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And for more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.